Imagine living in a time where any unusual behavior could lead to your conviction. You wake up one day and discover that you are being accused of witchcraft. But why? Something as banal as laughing out loud, owning a black cat, or even making a simple herbal tea. It may seem absurd, but for centuries women have been persecuted and killed for reasons that today seem unbelievable. What if I told you that some of these accusations still echo in today's society? Stay until the end to find out the most absurd reasons why women were called witches. The witch hunts were one of the darkest periods in history, claiming the lives of thousands of women under ridiculous and unfounded accusations. Fear of the unknown, religious fanaticism, and even personal rivalries fueled this merciless persecution. But what were the reasons that led a woman to be called a witch? You will be surprised at how arbitrary and absurd these accusations were. Chapter 1. Herbal Healing. Today, drinking tea to relieve aches and pains or treat a cold is completely normal. But in the Middle Ages, during the witch trials, a woman who knew about the medicinal properties of plants was seen as a threat. Female healers were accused of witchcraft because their knowledge challenged the church's monopoly on medicine. The irony? Many of these witches simply knew more about herbs than the doctors of the time. But this knowledge was dangerous, and many of them were killed simply for trying to help others. Chapter 2. Having a black cat. If you have a black cat at home, you should know that centuries ago, this could have been enough to get you burned at the stake. In medieval Europe, it was believed that witches had familiars, demonic spirits that helped them with their spells. Black cats, because they were agile and mysterious, were considered companions of witches. Many women were accused simply for taking care of these animals. The curious thing is that this superstition persists to this day. There are still those who believe that crossing paths with a black cat brings bad luck. Chapter 3. Having an unusual smile or look. Being a woman with a wide smile or an intense gaze was, in some communities, a sign of witchcraft. There was an irrational fear that certain facial features hid evil intentions. Women with very light eyes, very dark eyes, or those who looked penetratingly, were accused of bewitching others. In some villages, if a man claimed to have had an erotic dream about a woman, that was proof enough that she had bewitched him. Yes, the fault was never the man's, but always the witch's. Chapter 4. Knowing how to read and write. Imagine being accused of witchcraft simply because you could read. In many ancient societies, literate women were a threat. Knowledge was seen as something reserved for men and the clergy, and a woman who could read could discover forbidden secrets. Many nuns, writers, and even teachers were persecuted and condemned. The fear of a woman with knowledge was so great that in some places, any book found on a woman could be burned along with her. Chapter 5. Climate and Natural Disasters. If a crop failed, or a storm destroyed a city, someone had to be blamed. And often the blame fell on women who were strange or outcasts in society. Some were blamed simply for being near the site of a natural disaster. Historical accounts show women being blamed for droughts, excessive rainfall, and even eclipses. After all, the unknown always generated fear, and blaming a lonely or eccentric woman was a convenient way to explain away tragic events. Chapter 6. Laughing loudly or talking too much. Believe it or not, women who talked too much or laughed loudly could be seen as possessed or dangerous. In extremely conservative societies, women were expected to be discreet and submissive. If a woman expressed strong opinions or displayed lively behavior in public, she was considered a threat to order. Many were accused of witchcraft simply because they dared to stand out or refused to bow their heads. Chapter 7. Being beautiful or too ugly. Being too pretty or too ugly was grounds for accusation. Very beautiful women were seen as dangerous seductresses who used spells to attract men. Those who did not fit the beauty standards of the time were seen as demonic or out of the ordinary. In other words, no matter what you looked like, there would always be a reason to accuse you of witchcraft. The witch hunts were one of the most cruel and irrational episodes in history, but their scars can still be felt today. Many of the justifications used to persecute women in the past still resonate in the form of prejudices and stereotypes today. The fear of difference, the control over knowledge, and the need to find someone to blame for social problems continue to exist, just in new forms. If this video surprised you, just imagine how many other bizarre stories history hides. Subscribe to the channel and activate the bell so you don't miss the next videos about the most absurd and mysterious events in the world. See you in the next episode.